right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining our session. This is going to focus on a little housekeeping and cleanup for your Google Classroom at the end of the year as we're fastly approaching the end here.
Eric Kurtz is the guy that we usually follow when it comes to Google stuff, and he posted last year some great tips on how to clean up your Google Classroom at the end of the year. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to go through those tips with you so that you can be ready for next year. Just tips, tricks, some things we recommend, some things we don't recommend, so that you have a regular classroom that you clean out. But now that especially because we're online, you're probably using Google Classroom more and more. So cleaning it out, getting it ready for next year, making sure that you have everything available so that you could use it again. So here we go. And I'll start with the first tip. And the first tip that Eric has is to make sure that you're returning all student work. So you don't want to be the owner of all the students' work. You want to make sure that you return it to them so that they have ownership. So you want to make sure that you're returning it. Right now, if you're not returning it, it's making you the owner and reducing your students' rights to view only. So that's helpful for grading, but once the end of the school year is over, you don't want to leave it that way. When you're done grading an assignment, you want to make sure to return the files to your students. So like I said, the ownership can revert back to the students. It's critical if you later decide to clean up your drive and delete old files, because if you're still the owner, when you delete it, you're really deleting their work as well. If you've returned their files and are no longer the owner, you delete them, all it does is remove it from your drive.
Yeah, so one really easy way to do that is to, when you do get to your Google Classroom, and I'm just using this classroom for an example. I only have one current student in there. But when you go to your menu in the top left corner, you do actually have a to-do list for all your classes. Now, this might not be the best example because you can see I have like a million classes over here. But let's just say, if I've only got, maybe 4 or 5 classes that I'm teaching, one easy way to do it is to go to your to-do list, and everything that shows up in to review is going to be essentially assignments that you haven't returned yet to your students. And again, you're seeing I have a bunch of different teachers' Google Classrooms in here, that are slowly loading up. I have some of mine as well, but all right, so anyway, I'm in the to-do list right now. So again, I access that by clicking on menu and going to to-do. And then, as Shelly said, it's really important that you return all of your assignments to your students, because when you return the assignment, you are essentially making sure that it goes back to the students so that they can store it in their drive. And then you don't have to worry about it being a document that lives in your drive that you essentially have to manage, for the rest of eternity. So, just going through this right here and seeing, okay, here's all the people that I have. Here's what work I have. And I'm not going to do it for anyone else's assignments. I'm going to go to maybe my homophone unit here. And if you click on the 3 vertical dots to the right of all these assignments, you can just do a one-click mark as reviewed, and anybody that was assigned, it's going to move all of those assignments over to the reviewed, and that is then where you're going to be able to go and make sure, and you can see right here, I have no reviewed work right now, but this is essentially going to let you kick it back to all those students. So I'm going to go to this one right here and mark as reviewed. We'll just give that a second. There you can see it disappeared from my list there. When I go to reviewed, it now moves over to here. And then these are where, once I go to the assignment, I'm able to simply I can go in and I can click on my students and I can return all that work. So, you can essentially do this. If I go back just to my my classroom that I'm in, and I'm just going to go to this classroom right here. I could go through my classwork page for each student, and I can see, okay, let's see, we've got an actual assignment here. I can see, okay, this one's assigned, but it was never returned. It was never turned in. I could go through each assignment and click on it and make sure that I kick it back to the student. But depending on, I'm assuming that most people have several Google Classrooms that they're managing. That to-do list is definitely where you just want to see all of your assignments in one place for all 5 courses, and pretty much just give yourself, a few minutes and work through your list. Make sure that if you've got anything that's still assigned and not returned, that you're going through, clicking on those 3 dots, marking it for review, and then making sure that you can actually return it.
Any questions on that tip?
So I'm the librarian at Lidditz-El.
Mm-hmm.
I have 500 students with assignments. I only looked at the quizzes, like where they had to respond.
Right.
Where they just had to do something. I didn't return all those lessons. Do I need to go back and do that now? And then can you do a bulk assigned? Because like I'm not returning the assigned but not done. I can still see who hasn't done any work for me.
Right. I would wait on this. I would wait till maybe the summer and clean it out then. And this is just if you want to reuse this platform. I mean, you don't have to do this, but this is something that if you then decide over the summer to clean out your drive, you just need to keep in mind that those things are the students. They're, if you delete and if you didn't return and you delete, you're deleting their work.
Right. That's the most important part, Christine. So like if you don't return it to the students, they still have access to it, but you have access to it too in your drive. So, if you have 500 students and you have one assignment, you've got 500 assignments living in your Google Drive. The second you return them, you're basically pushing it all back to the kids. So even if you have like a document that's shared with you, if you ever delete that in the future, it's not going to remove it from that student's Google Drive. And they might want to go back to it at some point, use it for, inspiration for another class or refer to it as material. So
that would be the dream.
that would be the dream. Yeah. This COVID stuff's got me feeling really optimistic for the future.
Right.
But Christine, you did ask too about like kind of doing that in bulk, especially with 500 kids. So just to show you, if I go back to, I'm sorry, Google Classroom's being a little slow right now with all this.
Of course it is.
Because we're doing a screencast. So if I go to, okay, this looks like this could be one. Except everything's loading slowly. Okay, so when you're in this, like as you can see, I only have one student, but you're going to have a huge list that's just right? All the students down on this side. All you have to do is up top here in the upper left, if you click all students, it's going to select all 500 kids, and then you can click that return button.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Yeah, so I've already got, Isabella here returned, but if they were all, if you saw 500 assigned students,
you just click on all, Yep,
all students, it'll select them all and return. And that even goes for the students that maybe didn't even turn it in. It'll still select them, even if it's an assignment that you didn't require, like even if it was just a material and you provided a doc or something, all students return them just like that.
Perfect. Okay.
And again, I would wait till the end of the year. I wouldn't even worry about this right now.
So is there a difference between returning and marking as reviewed?
Yes. So when you're returning, you are
like when you were talking about marking as reviewed, in my mind, that was like returning it to the students.
Yeah. So all Mark Review is doing really is it's giving you a really quick snapshot of like, so we have some high school teachers, some middle school teachers that might have 5 different Google Classrooms. You can say I have like 100 Google Classrooms here. It's just putting every single assignment in a giant row like this. So you can see, is there anything that hasn't been reviewed yet, meaning like turned in or returned or anything like that. So all of these assignments means that like there might be some kids that I haven't returned it to.
Okay.
So all you're doing by clicking on this and going mark as reviewed is you're acknowledging, okay, this might be a doc. And I just realized that I wasn't sharing my screen. Sorry, let me go back to that again.
Think of it as returning permissions. When you return, you're actually returning the permissions to that student. So
yeah, it's so when I'm on this, review list, everything on this review list is basically saying that, I've assigned something and I might not have returned it yet. So everything on this to review list means that there might be some students that I haven't returned it to yet.
Okay.
So all you're doing by going through this, and I mean, to be honest, you don't technically even have to go to the reviewed. If you've maybe only got like 20 assignments in here, it'd take 5 minutes, but you just click on the assignment, return all, click on the assignment, return all, and just kind of work through your list. Again, my list is, it's ridiculous because I have so many classes, but for teachers, you might have that tops 5 classes and you might have, maybe 20 or 30 assignments you have to go through, but I would just work through that to-do list. It's a little easier than navigating if I was in my actual classroom trying to work through the classwork section.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Because in your classwork section, it might be like, just for example, on mine, it's kind of unit based. I don't want to have to go through, okay, I guess I'll go through all the grammar now, because some of these grammar assignments, they're like quizzes or they're ed puzzles. I'd have to work through each one and figure out which ones were actually assignments, where the to-do list basically puts all your assignments in one spot.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. So the second tip that we can show you guys then is, if you are planning on using your Google Classroom for a second year, if you have a lot of things in there that you want to pretty much maintain, but you also, because of security reasons or things like that, you maybe don't want your kids living in that Google Classroom, so they have access to quizzes and certain things like that you wouldn't want them to share. Just a really good tip is to unenroll all of your students at the end. I would say I would wait till summer. I wouldn't do this now. You would want to wait until pretty much, the year is over officially. And then similar to what we did before with that kind of bulk check mark, when we're in people right now in Google Classroom, but you can click on this button right here, and that's going to select every student in your entire Google Classroom. I only have one right here, but that would select all of them. And you have the option to remove all those students from the class.
So what this also does, it removes the kids from accessing the content. And you can see this being, especially in high school, where you don't want your kids to access some of the content that you have. 2 years ago, Google Classroom rolled out a feature where you can make a copy of your entire classroom. And that's actually not a really good idea, because what that does when you go to make a copy of your entire classroom, it copies all of your stuff twice or 3 times, and it makes your Google Drive a mess. So if you do decide to reuse your classroom, this would be the way to do it.
Yeah, and again, most of us have Google Classrooms that aren't just filled with materials and resources. If they were materials and resources and no assignments, you could give the same code every year and just use this, but
this would actually just kind of be you'd be creating like a template that you can then reuse the assignments and all that stuff. Yep.
Exactly. So yeah, even go to my old Google Classrooms here, these were classes that I actually taught in 2018, 2019, 3 different sections, but then I've kind of got this permanent shared section template and double block template that I used. And again, there's, I've got no people in it anymore, but I still have all of my classwork someday when it actually
right
works.
Because really, using a complete classroom exactly the same year to year is not what good teaching looks like. I can't even imagine doing that. I've never in my 20 years have done the exact same thing. I don't know about you guys, but it just doesn't work that way.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it really is just so you can kind of get that overview of the year, oh, okay, that's right. In September, we started with this assignment, and oh, that one worked really well and that one didn't. Maybe I'll reuse that one. Yeah, it's really just a nice place to kind of give you an overview of the year and have that template. So the next tip involves archiving, and I'm going to try to pull this back up. It's like I said, it's been a little slow occasionally here, but so what archiving your classroom essentially does is it's just going to clean up your Google Classroom homepage to some degree. So right now, this is my Google Classroom homepage, and I'm co-teaching and I'm a student in some of these classes just because, assisting with tech requests and stuff like that, and, walking through teachers through some things. So I have a lot of classrooms here. If you've only got maybe 4 or 5, this isn't too big of a deal. But ultimately, any classroom that you have, if you go to the little 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner of your main Google Classroom page, you do have the ability to archive. Now, I'm not going to actually archive this right now because it takes usually 5 to 10 minutes sometimes. So we'll probably just see it spinning for a while. But all it's going to do is it's going to remove it from this main list of classes so that, if I'm using Google Classroom 2019, 2020, 2020, 21, that way I don't start seeing, 4th period Mr. Olson's class 5 times. Now, it's not going to delete the class entirely, but it is going to store it in a place where if you go to Google Classroom and you scroll to the very bottom, you're going to be able to find this archived classes section. But you're only going to be able to see them when you access it from that link. You're not going to see it on this main page here. So really what it's doing is it's just cleaning up your main page so you don't get confused as you're clicking between classes. But the cool thing about it is at any point when I'm still in a current class and I go to create an assignment, when I go and actually I'm able to click on that plus create and create the assignment, I can still pull materials and resources from my archived classes, even though it's not visible on that page.
And that's exactly what Eric Kurtz said. It removes you from the main homepage. It freezes a class, so you can't make any new changes to it. So that's especially helpful if you choose not to remove students from the old classes. And it still allows you to copy and reuse old posts and assignments from the archived in your new classes. So
yeah, so not a bad idea to even, you know, like I said, make a template, or as Shelly said there, making a template and using that. You know, I did kind of, after I found out how long it took to archive and how it was, you know, a little difficult to access it. You do have the option, if you're new to Google Classroom, to almost make a class that you don't archive that's just called, you know, like I said, this is called templates.
Right.
That I have. And I let those live like on my homepage just so that I can quickly access them. But, you know, if you're a couple years deep in a classroom, you're just looking for organization, archiving is not a bad method there.
And if you ever needed to unarchive, you can. You would just go to the menu button and choose archive classes, hit the 3-dot menu, and then there's the restore button. So another thing that they mention is not only will archiving old classes help you keep your screen clean, it's going to help the kids. Even as Isabella logs in, you can see that there's all the classes from, you know, years past. And now that we're using Google Classroom more frequently and more teachers are using it, you know, it helps clean up their menu as well. You know, it's just good for them. They can easily jump right into that year's content instead of being distracted by the previous year.
Do you guys have any questions about that? I'd love to demonstrate just kind of what it looks like, but it really is, it's a bit, you know, you have to wait a good couple minutes when you first archive a class. I'm going to try one more time just to click here. Oh, okay. So these came up pretty quick, actually. So these are, you know, classes that I've archived already that I've had before. I'm only seeing them here, but let's just say if I ever wanted to go back to like my, you know, 7th grade class that I made over here at one point, I could just click on restore and it'll show back on my main page. I can also, you know, you can do the copy thing, but as Shelly said, I really wouldn't recommend ever copying your classes, because then you're getting duplicate files in your drive and that starts to get pretty annoying. But
and another thing we should note is that Google Classroom comes up with their major updates, it seems like the first week of August. So we're telling you all this stuff as it happens now. There could be some updates in August. There weren't many updates last year, but the year before it was a huge overhaul of Google Classroom. So if there's any changes of this, we'll make sure that we let you guys know. But so far, this is the best way for it to work.
Christine, did you have a question?
Yeah, so the specialists created Google Classroom, so it's like we're all teachers in the classroom, so I share it.
Mm-hmm.
I archive it, and then if I archive it on my thing, does that archive it for everyone?
That's a great question.
I believe it does. According to what I just read, it sounds like it does. It archives it for everybody.
Yeah, I believe if you're like
things, I should check with everybody and make sure.
Yeah, and you could always unarchive it. So it's not like you lose anything. It's just that you hide it.
But it would be good to know in case they're just like, where did that go? And they're not familiar with archiving, because, you know, keep in mind when you're, it's almost like Google Classroom, it's kind of like working in a Google Doc. Even if like anything you do, if you're a co-teacher, it's like equal permission. So, you know, if you delete the whole classroom, everybody else, it's going to be deleted for them too. So yeah,
you're not deleting anything.
Archive is not going to delete it. Just, definitely communicate about that for sure.
And again, remember, these are just cleanup tips.
Okay, cool. So I think one of our next tips involved, this is just a little calendar tip.
You know how in your calendar you have sometimes you have all your old classroom calendars. A tip to kind of clean up your calendars is to remove old class calendars from your Google Calendar list. So when you create a class in Google Classroom and then make assignments with due dates, this automatically creates a Google Classroom for the class. So while it's convenient while it's happening, once it's over, you can kind of get rid of it. So when the year's over and the class is done, you don't really need the calendar showing up anymore. If you have a number of classes, they can quickly clutter up that class list. So there are options for removing. You would go to Google Calendar, see where the list where it says My Calendars, and to remove an old class calendar, there's those 3 dots next to it in your My Calendar list, and you just want to hide it from the list.
Yeah, so I'm just going to choose one right here that, you know, is just on here. And when you hit hide from list right here, that's not going to delete that calendar. It's not going to, if you're, with somebody else on that calendar, it's not going to delete it for them. All it's doing is just hiding it from this gigantic list. So I'm going to be doing that, pretty soon at the end of the year here, just removing all these other teacher calendars. You guys see my screen, right? Yeah. So I'll remove a bunch of these calendars over here. But if I ever do want to go back and access that, you can always go to your settings and sharing in your calendar. And you can see here on the left side the little eyeball that's showing it's not visible as it's crossed through. I can always click that, and that'll open up that calendar again. But after a couple years, I'm going to have 30 7th grade ELA calendars just from teaching it so many different years, and you definitely want to make sure that you're removing those just so it doesn't clutter up there. There is an option to permanently delete those calendars too, but honestly, it's just kind of, as long as they're hidden, that's kind of all you want to do, just for your own organization. So, Shelly,
any questions about that?
Want me to kick it over to you for the Google Drive one? I mean, I feel bad that I'm hogging the screen.
Oh no, that's okay, because I feel like you have a classroom that's more recent, and I'm just kind of reading through with Eric's tips so that we make sure we cover everything. So I'm good if you're good.
Cool. Yeah. No, that's great.
The fifth tip that Eric mentions is moving your old class folders in Drive. Because Google Classroom automates the share and collaborating process, it's easy to forget what's actually going on behind the scenes. Everything that you are creating is then stored in your Drive. So your folder gets created in your Google Drive where all of the assignment documents and other files live and they're stored. Now, you might not ever open, like some people use that Drive, that classroom folder in the Drive. Do you guys use it? Did you know that it existed? As you create your classroom, there's a classroom folder that's created in your Drive. Yep.
Well, I'll pull this up just so you guys can see it. But in Google Classroom, hopefully this loads pretty quick, and we'll go to class. Okay, there we go. So in classwork, where we typically are housing all of our assignments, in the upper right-hand corner, now they've added the little Meet, link there that you can go to. There's your Google Calendar, but there is a Class Drive folder. So anything I'm putting into this Google Classroom is going into this Class Drive folder. And just to show you where that is in Google Drive, so here's my Google Drive kind of home screen. If I go to My Drive and click on that drop-down arrow, I've got a bunch of folders that I've created over the years for different units, but I've got this classroom folder. And this classroom folder basically has all of my Google Classrooms that I've ever had or that I've been a part of, and all those assignments that are in there are in that folder as well.
It automatically populates, even if you don't, even if you don't touch it, even if you don't see it, if you don't use it. This is what Google Classroom automatically populates for you.
Yep. So these all live in here. And this is a good tip for me to go through, because I'm going to just see if you can see. So as I click on that folder, every single folder within that Classrooms folder is an assignment that I posted in Google Classroom. And then if I would click on those folders, so I'm just going to click on a folder right there. I've got every single student, all of their work that essentially I have, or even if I've returned it.
Right.
And again, if I've returned it, I can delete that if I would want. But really, this is one of those things that, it's not like you have to worry about running out of space in Google Drive.
No.
Or something like that. So yeah, Eric's tip is essentially, now that I'm in Classroom, so here's all my Google Classrooms. I've got way too many right here that I'm looking at. So essentially to, 2-finger click and create a new folder that we're basically just calling archive. I'm just going to call it archive folder. Google
and you
Class.
could even, I see there you have trade day stuff. We probably have our online stuff. You can even create a folder that says professional development, and you can drag those folders in there.
So this is what, and I'm just going to change the color so we can see this a little bit better on the screen there. So this red one. So all I would have to do then is I could just take one of my classes and I could just click, and I don't want to do it right now because I don't want to touch someone else's classroom that's over there. But, actually I'll take this one because I know this is.
But that's a good tip too. Do you see the folders where they have people in them?
Yeah.
You see where like some of them are just plain and some of them have a person icon. That means that you're collaborating with someone else, correct? Is that what I believe that means? It's shared. So those are the ones you want to just make sure that before you delete anything.
Yeah. But, for that one now when I have archive folder, I've got, this class in here that essentially I'm like, okay, I don't really need this one right now anymore. Or at least I don't want to see it under all my classrooms. I just want to have my active classrooms here. So it's not a bad idea to just create that archive folder in Drive. You can, again, you're going to have a folder in Drive called Classroom. and then just drag all of the classrooms that you no longer are using in that archive folder, just to make sure that you have a little bit more space there to work with. You guys have any questions about that one?
Are you going to do some more with Google Drive? Because you might cover my question then.
Feel free to just ask it. It's
Yeah.
we had one more tip on Drive, but please ask it if there's something coming up.
So sometimes it's helpful to go to the shared with me and search in there if I can't find a document. So when I go in there now, I see like art projects and music things and gym things that I like that are in there that just are cluttering up things that have been shared with me, and I don't want them.
Right.
Christine, this is tip number 6, I believe. Because
absolutely.
This is one thing I want to say about that, Christine. So this is my here I am back in my Drive. Okay. Here's my shared with me section. This shared with me section, I've got 10 billion kids living in here. Every assignment I've ever clicked. This is Grand Central Station.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's nothing that is it is never going to be clean. It's always going to constantly be bombarded with assignments.
The more you use Google Classroom, the more it's just going to be constant.
You could spend your summer organizing it, cleaning up. My best piece of advice, and this is honestly, I think the tip in a nutshell, is accept that it's Grand Central Station.
Right.
Organize your drive, like, this whole section that says My Drive. This is the great place right up here to organize. You accept that shared with me will never be clean, and your life will be happier. I'm telling you, you truly could spend so much time. I know one year, I think I did try to organize it. Removed 50 assignments with 70 kids in every assignment. I'm like going through like, all right, we're really cleaning this up.
Right.
And like a month into September, I'm like, now I have 10,000 assignments again there. You almost have to think of it as just a hub where stuff is constantly flowing. You're not going to run out of space, and you can still search for things in there. But I mean, and it's your Google Drive. You can do whatever you want with it. But honestly, I think Eric Kurtz even kind of agrees that if you can just accept that it will always be a mess, you're probably going to be better off. My Drive is where you want to organize, but the shared section is, that's a really tough one to
think about it as your Facebook feed. There are some things in there you just never want to read. You just keep scrolling. I mean, we belong to we co-teach with, there's a lot of teachers that put us on as co-teachers so we can look at their classroom. So we get, students we don't even know. So I understand what you're saying about the art and the gym. You want nothing to do with that, but think of that more as a feed and not as,
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good analogy for it. It's really just one of those that, like, you could spend eternity, going through and just deleting these posts that are showing up in a feed, and every day you're going to get another 100 posts. So it's like, and I know it feels like it's like your folder, like that's my shared with me folder, but you almost have to look at it as just like it's some external source that's just coming in. The My Drive section, that's really where you can do your organization.
Now, that being said, if there's something in that shared with me feed that you want, you drag it to your Drive, and then you can organize it more. So.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point right there too. Yeah, if you're just like, hey, this is something I really want for sure. But sometimes they live simultaneously too. It's so yeah.
Yep. So those were the 6 tips that we have. This whole session was about cleaning it up. It's, not getting into the nitty gritty of Google Classroom. It's talking about ways that you can clean up your classroom. But do you guys have any other questions?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I have a very kind of introductory question.
That's okay.
So I created all these videos on Loom, and then you download them, and then I have to upload them to Google Drive. If they're in Google Drive now, can I just take them from my desktop and put them in trash? I won't lose them on Google Drive, will I?
If they're uploaded to your Google Drive, you're safe.
Yeah, so if you did like the file download from Loom, downloaded it to your desktop, and then dragged it from your desktop to Drive.
Yeah.
And if it's on your desktop,
it's gonna live there.
Drive, you're good to go. And then that does that, and that's a great thing that you want to do, because you could eat up your computer space pretty quick if you've got 100 instructional videos that are 15 minutes each. That'll definitely take up space. But if it's in Drive, and absolutely consider going in Drive and
organizing,
make an instructional video section, or if you want to videos by unit, things
Yeah,
like that.
I tried to do that. So
Yep.
yeah, okay.
That's a great question. Absolutely.
Yeah, one of the things we also talked to Ron about is uploading to the CMAP as well. Like if you have some great videos that you can see being used in the future, whether or not you're online teaching or not, a great thing to do is, especially because you're sharing it with your, other specialists in your group, is to upload it to the CMAP in those content areas, because then it'll always be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's supposed to be one of our in-service days.
Yeah. So So then you would be, you would be saved in you'd be saving it in 2 different places.
Okay, great.
And keep in mind too, if you are using something like Loom, unless you're deleting them out of Loom, they'll still be living in your My Library in the Loom extension, and you can always re-download them if you just even if you're just I can't find them. The one tip I would say though too for even organizing from Loom after you download is when you upload to Drive, sometimes you get a really funky title with it's just a bunch of letters. I know when I do a screen record here, it'll just be almost like code. Just make sure that you rename them so that
rename it. And you may even want to, we talked about this as well, when you rename it, you might want to put online, or you might want to put, you might want to tag it that first word so that if you do put it in the CMAP, that that's an online video, an online tutorial or something like that.
Okay. Sounds good.
Make sense?
Yes.
Good.
Cool. Any other questions for the good of the group?
This was great. Thank you.
Oh, good. I'm glad you found it helpful. We thought that it wouldn't hurt, and we're videotaping this so that other people can see it as well. But, just a good way to clean things out. And, the more we go digital, the more we're going to have to clean out digitally. So these were some great tips. And
And we have a lot of new Google Classroom users this year, so this will be maybe first time for some people, but you get in the habit of, as at the end of the year, once you start using it, a little bit more frequently, just kind of going through this process. But yeah, a lot of tips here that hopefully will help people feel like, okay, this is clean now, and then at the start of the year, we can just, re-up again. So
yeah, thank you for everything.
You're so welcome. Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
enjoy the rest of your day, and we're here if you ever need anything.
Yeah,
All right.
feel free to reach out.
All right.
Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.